So in this lesson, you'll learn to work with the UI collection view. It's one of the newer components for iOS, and it's very simple to use. Our finished application will have a series of wallpaper patterns laid out using the UI collection view. Now, this component works very similar to how the UI TableView component works. So I'd recommend you first get very comfortable with the data source and delegate protocols of the UI TableView, and once you're comfortable with using that control, using the UI collection view will be a piece of cake. Okay, I'm starting off with a single view application template project, and the first thing I'm going to do is drag in our pattern images. So I'm going to first create a group inside my project to hold those images. I'll call it images, and then I'll just drag in all my pattern images I have into that group. And yes, I want to make sure the checkbox is marked next to the copy items into designated group folder. And now all my pattern images are in my application. Each image is 150 pixels by 150 pixels, and that will be the size of the boxes that we use in our collection view. The first thing I'm going to do is move over to the storyboard, and I'm going to drag out a collection view control from the object library to my storyboard and have it fill the entire screen there. Then switching to the view controller, I'm going to declare a property for that collection view. Property non-atomic weak IB outlet, since we're going to be connecting to it on the storyboard. UI collection view. Make sure you do collection view, not collection view cell. We'll get to that in a little bit. And I'll just name it my collection view for easy naming. And then switching back to the storyboard, I'm going to draw a connection between that variable name I declared and the collection view. Next, I'm going to switch back to my viewcontroller.h file, and I'm going to declare that my view controller is going to conform to a few protocols for the collection view. Using a table view control, I'd make my view controller conform to the UI TableView data source and delegate protocols. And in a similar situation here, except for this time it's the UI collection view data source, UI collection view delegate, and UI collection view delegate flow layout. Now there's a bunch of different layouts you can use for a collection view. You're given the flow layout out of the box, and you can develop your own layouts if you want to. The flow layout is all we're going to need for this lesson here, so that's what we'll be using. Now in my viewcontroller.h file, I declared my view controller to be the data source and delegate for my UI collection view. In the storyboard, I'm going to draw those connections as well. So selecting my view controller on the storyboard and switching to the connection inspector. I'm going to select my collection view, switch to the connection inspector, and there I see the data source and delegate outlets, and I can connect that to my view controller. There. Now that I have those connections made, I'm going to switch back to my viewcontroller.m file and implement those delegate methods. The first thing I'm going to do is declare an array which will hold the names of all the images I plan to load into that view controller, into that collection view. So inside the interface directive, I'll type property non-atomic strong NSArray, and this will be my pattern images array. And then let's initialize that in the view.load method. Say self.patternImagesArray is, and this will just be an array of the names of those image files that I imported. So first is pattern1.jpg, and I'm just going to copy that 7 times and just increment the numbers. So now I have an array filled with all the image files that I'm going to be using in this collection view. Now I need to implement some of those methods. First I need to implement a method that declares how many sections my UI collection view is going to have. This is one of the data source methods, and it's just called number of sections in collection view. And I have to return an integer. I'm just going to have one section in my collection view, so I'll return 1. That's easy enough. Then, just like the table view control, we have to tell it the number of sections and rows. This time I have to tell it how many items I'm going to have in each section. So this is collection view, and unfortunately the collection view has such long method names that you're really going to look closely to make sure you get the right method name selected in there. What I want is a number of items method name. Number of items in section. There we go. And I'm going to have one item for each one of my pattern images, so the number of items I'm going to have total is the number of items in that array. So return pattern images array count. So I have one section, and I'll have now a total of 7 items in that section. Finally, I have to give it in a table view control, I'll be doing a cell for row at index path. In the collection view, I have a cell for item at path method I need to implement. So collection view, cell for item at index path. Now I'm going to create my own custom cell for this. So initially, because we don't have that built yet, I'm just going to stub it out with a placeholder for now. I'm going to say UICollectionView cell called cell, and this works just the same as a table view control does. Collection view DQ reusable cell, and my identifier is going to be pattern cell, and index path is one of the variables that's passed into the method here, so I'm just going to use that index path. And then I'm just going to return the cell. Like I said, we're going to make our own custom cell for this, so right now I'm just making placeholders for this so that the method is complete. Now, one difference between the UI collection view and a table view control is that we have this flow layout delegate method to implement as well. In this method, we define the size of each cell and the insets, how far I want that cell inset from on the top, left, bottom, and right. And these are things that you don't have to do in table view cell, but you do have to do with a UI collection view. So, collection view, and then within these methods, I can look for my layout methods here. And I actually have to read the space at the description at the top here to get the right method. And I want the method that allows me to set the size of the item. Size of header, size of footer, size of the specified item cell. And that's the method I want. Now the size, I have to return a CG size object, so return CG size make, and then I just define a width and a height. I'm going to be using 150 pixels for both the width and the height of each of my cells. So that's how I define that for my collection view. Finally, I'm going to define insets for the left, top, bottom, and right. So collection view again, and in those layout methods, defining the insets. So here I'll be defining the insets using the collection view inset for section at index method, and I'll return a new object type called a UI edge insets, and I could just make it on the fly here. So from the top, left, bottom, side, I'm just going to use 5 pixels for each, 5 points for each, excuse me. And there I've defined the methods I needed to define for my UI collection view in the viewcontroller.m file. Okay, so that was the difficult part of the collection view. Most of those methods look very similar to the UI TableView methods. The two new ones are defining the size of each cell and the insets between the cells. So now what I need is actually create the cell that I want to be using inside my collection view. Let's switch back to the storyboard and lay out how I want that cell to look in Interface Builder. Now, you notice that in Interface Builder I have this collection view. I dragged out the collection view and it automatically came with this prototype collection view cell inside of it. Now I'm going to resize that the way I want to, clicking on my collection view cell and setting the size to a custom 150 by 150. Obviously, when it's selected, you can see this prototype cell. When it's deselected, it's kind of hard to see as it goes with the white background. If you switch the collection view and in the attributes inspector change its background to a different color, which I'm just going to do for the sake of this tutorial, it's easier to see exactly where that prototype cell is then. Okay, my prototype cell is 150 by 150. I'm going to drag in an image view inside of that, which is where I'm going to put those pattern images. And I'm also going to drag in a label control and have it at the bottom of this collection view, covering the 150 pixels of width of the collection view. And I'm going to change the background of that label control to be white. And just so I can see the design, I'm going to set an initial image in there, pattern 1. Oops, one thing I do want to do is center the text of that label control. There we go. So now my prototype collection view cell is exactly how I set up exactly how I want it to. What I'm going to need to do then is define my own custom class for that cell. So I'm going to go to File, New, File, and under Cocoa Touch, Objective-C class, my new class is going to be Pattern View Cell, and make sure it's a subclass of UI Collection View Cell. I'll save it in the default location. And then all I need to do in my Pattern View cell is make properties for both that UI image view and that label control. So property non-atomic weak IB outlet UI image view. Now call it pattern image view, and then property non-atomic weak IB outlet UI label, and I'll call that pattern label. And that's really all you need to do for your UICollectionView cell. Switching back to the storyboard then, I need to select my collection view. I'm going to need to set that reuse identifier, and that reuse identifier has to be the same as what I'm calling it in my cell for item at index path. Here I've got it labeled pattern cell, so in the interface builder with that collection view cell selected, I'm going to call that, paste that in there, oops, pattern cell. And then for that cell, I'm also going to switch over to my identity inspector and change the class from being a generic UICollectionView class to being my pattern view cell class. Now that it's my pattern view cell class, I should be able to switch over to the connections inspector, and now I can see the outlets for the pattern image view and the pattern label that I defined in that custom pattern view cell class I created. So I can draw those connections out to the objects on the interface builder. The pattern view goes to the image view, and then the pattern label goes to that label control. And now that I have a custom pattern view cell class to use, back in my viewcontroller.m file, I can customize my cell for item at index path method using my custom class I created. The first thing we're going to have to do is import that class. So import pattern view cell.h, and then down in the method, instead of using the generic UICollectionView cell, I can use my subclass pattern view cell as a cell. Now that I'm using my own custom class, I can set what the image should be in that image view, as well as what the text of the label control should be. First, I'm going to create a string object for the name of the image I want to use. So my pattern string, and this will be, for each cell, I'm going to use the corresponding object in my array I created. The pattern images array. So for cell 1, I'm going to use the first object from that array. For cell 2, I'm going to use the second object in that array, and so on and so forth. So I want to draw out of that array what the string is for that element in the array. So my string will be my pattern string is self.pattern images array object at index. And what index number are we going to use? Whatever index it happens to be on right now. I have this index path variable, so index path dot row is what I get to use. The exact same syntax that you'll be using in a table view control. Now that I have the string of my pattern image, I can put that into both the image view and the label control. So cell dot pattern image view dot image is UI image image named my pattern string, and cell dot pattern label is dot text is my pattern string. So because we created that custom class, we can now set all the elements and set all the properties of the views inside that custom class however we want. Now, when I test the app, I should see it automatically load the name of the pattern as well as that pattern image into each one of those cells in my UI collection view. So now you've got to see exactly how easy it is to use a UI collection view. Again, it's very similar to how you use a table view control. I'd get comfortable using a table view control before you begin working with the UI collection view control. And once you do that, you'll see that the parallels make it very simple to use. The next step that you'd want to take after this is implementing the methods from the delegate protocol, the UI collection view delegate protocol, which will allow you to write methods to have your app respond when the user selects one of those images, and perhaps move to a new page, a new view in your application, or however you want that application to respond.